Welcome back, everyone, to WTF is on My Mind. Today, I am in Lisbon with none other than Richard Grannon. We were talking the other day about a podcast episode with Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, and there were two particular pieces that we thought would be very interesting to talk about. Some of you are going to get a little inflamed, a little upset. Just hold on to your knickers. Remember to be curious. Remember not to get too partisan. Just think this through.
Harden up.
Harden up, basically. All right, so I'm going to play this first section. Harden up, boys and girls. Let me play this loud enough. I've showed you these before, but I think it's worth looking at again.
Yes, sir.
All right, so this is the first one. And we can stop anytime just to talk about it, because I have a lot of thoughts. I'm sure you have as well.
The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic, or they have dark tetrad traits. They're Machiavellian, they're sadistic. That's about 4%.
Wait, just hold on. Dark tetrad, again, is Machiavellian, sadistic, and what else?
Narcissistic, psychopathic, Machiavellian, sadistic.
Okay, that's dark tetrad.
That's tetrad.
Okay. So the difference between triad and tetrad is tetrad has sadistic added on?
Yeah, so dark triad would be Machiavellian, psychopathic, narcissistic.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that.
Right.
But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees.
By the way, I hate it when he starts talking about the Bible.
Yeah, me too. It's the biblical corpus.
You do a very good impersonation of
Well,
him.
thank you. It depends on what you mean by good. It's not exactly clear to me. Go on, sorry.
I wanted to start with that. Just we'll continue playing, but just this thing that I keep on trying to explain to people, which is that they work their way into these positions. And he's going to talk soon about they wear the cloak, which it seems people have a hard time accepting that idea.
So the first thing, just to deal with the straw man that will inevitably come out is, I think it's wrong. It's probably not quite clinically accurate to say that everybody who is narcissistic, psychopathic, cluster B, dark tetrad is going to seek positions of power. I think, obviously he's in mid-flow. He's probably been chatting for an hour and a half already.
Before this, they were talking about the woke right.
Okay, so so context. So he's already in the middle of a conversation. He's describing something. He is not offering diagnostic criteria. And it's just really important to say that, because if I say online, narcissists tend to think of themselves in the second person, and every time they're with you, they're also imagining how they look to everybody else, and that's a very narcissistic thing to do, then people will sometimes go, oh, so if I do that, that means I'm a narcissist. And then I would say, all water is wet. Not all wet things are water. Like it becomes a reasoning problem. Not every narcissistic psychopath is power seeking, but the ones, what he's talked about, because of the woke right, he already referenced that, and they're having a conversation about power structures and politics and who is gravitating up into those power structures. And once you've established that's the context, that's where this comes in. I just wanted to, because it's a potential attack vector we can just close down really quickly.
Oh, they'll attack us for shit every way. There's some shit we'll say that's a problem anyway.
Sure.
All right, let's continue.
They're the people who use God's name in vain, right? As they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam.
I don't know why he's saying that all the Pharisees do that or did that. That actually isn't biblical. I just want
you know more than I do then, because
it's not like every Pharisee was a hypocrite. They were just a class of religious Jewish intellectual who were very, very high ranking in the Jewish social order. But he's made Pharisee synonymous with, maybe it is in some Christian groups because of the Jewish effect on Christ. But I just wanted to say.
No, actually, it's a good point, because I think you and I have had this chat before. Where I struggle with Jordan Peterson, I look at a lot of amazing knowledge.
Amazing, yeah.
It's just this constant like right angle turn into the Bible is the map and the territory.
The right angle turn and straight into a brick wall.
Yeah.
I've never, ever, not once heard him debate that successfully.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you are you are possibly the best English-speaking public speaker on psychology. For the love of God, for the love of all that is holy, ironically enough, drop it. Like, why are you insisting? He's insisting on an avenue of reasoning that is insupportable. It's indefensible.
Yeah.
It's not, he can't do it. He's never done a good job of it, and it doesn't really make sense. So there's this very uncomfortable, his knowledge of the cluster B spectrum, the DSM, the psychiatric definitions is far superior than mine. Plus he has a higher IQ, more learning, more practice in all of this. But then it's like this self-sabotage, shoot yourself in the foot thing. Now I'm going to make it religious.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude,
every time.
You don't need to. You don't need you're brilliant.
Yeah.
It's enough. Maybe it's like a compensatory thing, like I need to bring something else in. No, you don't. It's great. Jordan Peterson on personality disorders, PTSD, and relationships. Let's say self-improvement, positive psychology. Brilliant. World-class. Probably one of the best, if not the best academic public speaker alive today on these subjects. And then we get into like evolution and philosophy and religion.
Framing.
It's a nightmare.
I'm going to stop bitching about
Sorry.
that now. No, okay, here we go.
We love you, Jordan.
Yeah, you know what? We admire
The
you.
criticism comes from love.
No, mine comes from irritation. It's just it's just constantly framing everything with the damn book. I mean, anyway.
Put the book down.
Put the book away.
You mean the corpus?
The corpus, right. All right, here we go.
They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Yes.
And so then you have the problem, and the right's going to face this more and more particularly, because the left had to face it when they were in powers.
Yes.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population, who are clothed in your clothing and waving your flags, but who are only in it for narcissistic benefit? You know,
That's the point I want to pick up on. Clothed in your clothing, because this is the thing that's hard for people to understand, especially if they like, a politician or a leader. They have difficulty in understanding that this person thought their way into this position, and they now wear the clothing that you will respond to and believe is good. That's the thing I sometimes find I struggle to get people to understand.
That people are responding to a false signal that's being made through symbols rather than the content of what the person is doing.
Yeah. But also that they think, well, just because this person speaks my game and wears the clothing I like and is maybe soft-spoken and seems gentle, which is all just craft.
Performance,
yeah. This is the thing I think that is so important, is that they're wearing the cloak of everything that I love, that everything the person loves, and then they just buy it completely.
Yes. I am immediately thinking of the Austrian painter, because I think that's what he did. I think
Which one?
The Austrian painter with the little mustache.
Oh,
is
the
very,
Austrian painter.
very angry.
Yeah. The one we won't mention.
Yeah, Kanye West's hero, villain, whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you track what he was doing and how he did it historically and the words he was using, it was push button. It was exactly what those people in that context, in that timeline, in that reality tunnel wanted to hear. And I personally believe that man did it fairly cynically in knowing that that's exactly what was happening. Not that he wasn't a true believer for the cause, but that the rhetoric was push-button rhetoric. Very, very much.
So he listened to what they craved for, yearned for, and gave it to them.
Well, I work in the space of narcissistic abuse. You have been in and gotten yourself out of multiple cults. Say I take you to South Africa tomorrow, and I say, what does this group want to hear? We could map it out probably in about 4 hours for a political campaign that would last 10 years. We go to the UK, where you and I have both worked, and we're both familiar with the political situation there. Same thing again. And you would just say, okay, what's the political movement? What's the ambition of the political movement? What's the temperature in the room? What are the coordinates of this debate? Okay, this is what the leader, just give me an actor. I don't care. I don't fuck, like, as long as he looks right or she looks right, sounds right, here's the script. And you'll get people following you, because it's not hard to do. So what I'm alluding to here is there's a pitfall, there's a vulnerability in human psychology to people who are a little bit cluster B, narcissistic, psychopathic, as Jordan Peterson is rightly saying, who can be like, what does the culture want to hear right now? How am I going to get power right now? And then he did this with his hand, and he said, they take the language.
Yeah.
They take the language. They take the rhetoric. Adolf took the rhetoric of, an assaulted country. The country was flesh. The country was us, and it was being, sexually assaulted, molested, and contaminated. And everybody was like, "Yeah, that's what's happening. What should we do?" Well, you must be strong when you are dealing with a parasite. You must harden your heart and kill that was,
Yeah.
and it taps into very, very primal instincts in people.
Yeah. And the thing I keep thinking about is, when I walk into any situation and I see some injustice, I evaluate it based on what my principles are and what I think my morality and what I think is good and bad. And then I move forward, accordingly. What's so interesting about what he's describing is the person has no morality. They have no principles other than how do I get power?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get leverage? And they walk into the situation to see what other people want and what side should they be on to get the most power. That is a really unique way to do things.
I think, unique, except as he rightly says, we're probably talking about 4 to 5% of the population, which is a real problem. If 5% of us, if 5 out of every 100 people is living in a psychotic, dissociative, delusional reality where they are amazing and special and they have the right to do harm to others and they don't have a moral core. I mean, the whole conversation about the psychiatric definitions, the cluster B and what is a psychopath, what is a sociopath, it's fascinating, but sometimes it gets a little bit too heady and academic. You go back to the origins of when we used to first call people psychopaths. It was in a very, very Christian context, and it meant the person either had a dark soul or no soul.
Really?
That was the implication. So psyche means mind, but it really means soul more than mind. So the psychology is the study of the soul. Psychopath, pathology is pain. So this is a soul who's in pain. The original psychopaths were not serial killers. The people who were first being called psychopaths would be women of the night with 5 illegitimate children who couldn't stop drinking gin and wouldn't stop selling their bodies. So we would, as good Christian men, take them into an asylum and then put them inside of a human washing machine and try and torture the devil out of them, because that's what medical science said we should do. Ice baths. The washing machine's a real thing. You probably know all this. They tumble people.
Insane.
It's totally insane. But she would have been called a psychopath. Has she killed anyone? No. Is she a predator? No. But she's a parasite on society, and she seems to have no soul. Whereas your shame, there was no sense of like this woman's traumatized.
Yeah.
She's been used as an object of sexual gratification from whatever age, and she's completely scrambled, and she has no boundaries, and like she had no chance. No. That person has no soul, or they were born with a dark soul. That's the original. It's not a meaning. It's the original sense.
Yeah.
I'm using, we've both worked with Dr. Paul Taylor. He taught me about a concept. I'm sorry, I can't remember the philosopher. I'm not that academically good on this stuff. But epistemes. So the episteme of any age is the way in which people sort information in the age epistemologically. And it's quite hard for us to access it. So I started thinking, well, what would people have thought? I think the first time psychopath is used is a long time ago. It's like 1840 or 1850. What would they have thought? Well, we were all obviously Christian.
Yeah.
Well, you're a good Christian European man, surely. I mean, it wasn't a choice. You couldn't be like, no, actually, I believe in Buddhism. Yeah. No, everybody was a Christian. Society was Christian. What is this woman doing? She's lying around on the road. Her children are everywhere. Put her in the ice bath. She's clearly a psychopath. And that's where that sort of definition is originally coming from. All of that just to say, in order to simplify this, the narcissism, histrionic, borderline, all of the cluster B, because psychiatry can't really deal in the realm of morality, because that's a philosophical issue. It means a person with no moral compass, or as you just alluded to, a highly mobile moral compass. It's very contingent.
Yes.
Very contingent on the circumstances and the objectives they have.
Yeah. Amoral, perhaps.
Amoral.
Or even immoral. All right, let's just listen to the rest. Hey, quick interlude. If you're liking these conversations and want to help me keep expressing what is on my mind, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe even follow the podcast wherever you listen. And if you want to go a step further in supporting the show and getting access to some behind-the-scenes rants, you can join me over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Mark Vicente. It really does make a difference. All right, back to the episode.
The people who studied the dark triad, these were people who originally studied psychopaths, and they moved into ordinary personality, so to speak, on the fringes. They showed that the non-criminal psychopaths, so the fringe cases, are Machiavellian. They use their language to manipulate. They're narcissistic. They want unearned reputation. That's what a narcissist wants. And they're psychopathic, which makes them predators or parasites. Okay, that's pretty bad, those three things. But they had to expand the nomenclature after a while because they found that they were also sadistic, which implied that if you're Machiavellian and narcissistic and psychopathic, you develop a sufficiently bad view of your fellow man that their undeserved pain is a source of pleasure to you. And that's what's being enabled online.
Yes.
Like, see, because we've evolved real specific mechanisms to keep such things under control in face-to-face interaction. Lack of anonymity, for example, within a community. Psychopaths in the real world, they wander. They have to move from place to place because people who figure out who they are, and they're held responsible. They're particularly held responsible by men. But online, they escape from that. They escape from that protective, they escape from that system of constraints, and they have free reign, and they can find other people like them very rapidly, and they can gang together.
So the thing I wanted to bring up with you, ask you about, is this idea of enabling the psychopathic behavior, because we spoke about it the other day. And I see it especially in sort of the, let's call them the good people trying to bring about utopia, that may stand for nonviolence and kindness and empathy, who are basically just becoming really horrible and mean. Not everybody, but there are certain people that lead certain, activist groups.
They're called pro-social and communal narcissists. Sorry, go on.
Yes.
Heavy cynicism from this side of the table.
Yes, exactly. And then what happens is people see their force and their fervor and get like, well, this is good. But what they're saying is horrible. And the people are going along with this mob mentality that it's really evil. They want to really hurt people. Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on that one.
I think I've been saying for years that like psychology and psychologists are incredibly naive. So the very, very structure, the very, very definitions that Jordan was just raising there, they're rooted in naivety. They're like, some people are they're just shitty people. And as he said, and he's right, it's not a mistake on his part. Well, we originally studied psychopaths, and then we saw that there was unusual psychopaths who were non-criminal. Because at one time we would have said, in order to be a psychopath, you really need to be a criminal. But actually, that's not true. There's this other type of non-typical psychopath that are highly narcissistic. They're very, very Machiavellian. They use their language to get what they want. The end always justifies the means. And they're sadistic. And to me, as a guy who did nightclub security 15 years, I'm like, yeah, well, duh. But for psychologists, they were like, well, this wasn't it's one of the strengths of the scientific method and one of the weaknesses. You build empirically. You can't just make it up. You can't just start 75% of the way through the story. It's like you have to say based on previous researchers' work and previous peer-reviewed pieces that we know about. And you really got to work with the consensus model. You can try and work outside of the consensus model, but it's not good science. Even I don't support it, and I'm a lunatic. So what he's saying is, it just reminds me, it's so sad that yes, eventually, and psychology's slow. It's not just naive, it's slow. It takes 20, 30 years for them to catch up and go, yes, these people, they enjoy inflicting pain. Okay, well, ask a prison officer then. How many of these guys enjoy inflicting pain? It's not all, but there's, because just to make that point, our view of psychopathy comes from the American penal system. The global consensus, psychiatric consensus on what a psychopath is, the thick end of the wedge of the research and the conceptualization of it is American. And it comes from the American penal system. People should remember that. So there's a strength in that, but there's many, many weaknesses in that. So people who don't match the archetype of the average, mean, median, or mode American prisoner, they're invisible. They're invisible predators because they don't. This guy's not a drug addict. This guy's never punched a cop. This guy looks after his kid. Well, that proves he's not a narcissist. That proves he's not a psychopath.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down. This is a field of study in its absolute infancy.
That makes sense. Also, I keep thinking about, I was looking at some photographs the other day of like my former cult leader, Keith Raniere, and this was a shoot I did for him, and he was wearing like a nice little shirt and like a cardigan. And I was thinking, he looks kind of like Mr. Rogers. And that was his whole thing. I'm harmless. I wear, sweaters. I look kind. And then I think about people, I know some people are going to have a really hard time with this, but when I see, like, for instance, like Bill Gates wearing the same thing, I'm like, I think a lot of people are buying that this means good.
Yeah.
That a cardigan and a shirt and seeming kindness equals good. And given my experience, I'm like, no, it doesn't equal good.
It's one of Robert Greene's laws of power. I don't really like the laws of power. I don't find
I hate them.
Yeah? Did you?
It's
It's
creepy. It's creepy.
It is creepy. And I've always found it's one of those things that gets unearned. I'm like, why are people making such a fuss over this stuff?
Yeah.
It's like daft. But one of them he said is nobody cares about what's inside of you. Everybody's just focused on the surface and the appearance. What I would say is, maybe in a more compassionate perspective, would be human beings have a limited bandwidth. And they're largely going to take what you tell them to be true about you in about 4 or 5 seconds, and then they're going to move on. Now, what you say is true about you comes through your body language, your tone of voice, your facial expressions, the way you dress, the way you present yourself, and largely speaking, who you say you are. I don't really have time as a normal person trying to live their lives to psychoanalyze, nor the ability or the will to psychoanalyze everybody I meet and to penetrate the outer shell, to go to the unconscious. You enjoy that. I enjoy that. But Gen Pop is like, I'm busy. I don't have time for this nonsense.
Yeah.
So they'll just believe what they're presented with. And it's weirdly powerful. It's disappointingly powerful, but that's just how it works. That's the way the human mind
And
works.
it's very compelling. I mean, it's very compelling. You look at certain people and you go like, oh, they seem like a nice person. And then you discover all these things they've been doing behind closed doors. You go like, how is that possible? It's different if the person's like, I don't know, a fucking rapper that like talks about doing horrible things to people.
Yeah.
That you can sort of go, oh, I can see how that's what's happening.
Give me the rapper.
Any day.
Give me the
Any
fucking
day.
rapper any day. You want me to go to dinner with somebody? ASAP Ferg or somebody like that who's constantly like chatting about fighting and killing and birds and how much he likes cars and shit. Put me next to him rather than some weird, creepy life coachy spiritual guide type. The nicer people present themselves, the more freaked out I am. I'm like, nobody's like that. Or a Louis C.K. Sit me next to a Louis C.K. who just says I'm a terrible human being.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, well, that's your baseline. Probably you're better than that. So ASAP for Louis C.K. That would be an interesting meal.
Yeah.
We should set that up.
Yeah.
And then from there, as you go up, you're like, no, these are good people. But like, okay, here's a way of questioning it. Why am I working so hard to convince you that I'm nice? What is that? I'm not. You get me on the wrong side. You get me before a coffee. You get me in traffic, or I over-injected my TRT.
Yeah.
I ain't that nice.
Yeah.
I haven't got a problem with it. I'm like, there's 2 things that bother me. One, a neurotic attachment to the idea of somebody being pure.
Yes.
Fuck off.
I had
Please.
that. I'm recovering from that.
Oh, really? Did you?
I had that for a while.
You wanted to be pure?
Yeah.
How hard was that though? Like,
Fucking impossible and stressful.
Did you feel guilty?
And then I believed people that presented themselves as pure. I bought it because I wanted it to exist so badly.
If you had to guess, obviously Native American tribes are distinct families with distinct cultures and languages, thousands of different languages and a lot of different beliefs. But the consensus, do you think Native Americans generally believe that humanity is good or generally believe that humanity is evil?
Huh. I'm going to go with evil.
They believe they're evil because of because of just life
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And I've said this to people, obviously you're smart, but people who are like, oh, Native Americans, they just stroke the horses and the land just springs flowers. Some, yes, they were vegetarian, they were arable farmers. Some of them would torture you to death over a period of weeks and jerk off over it. Like they had long ritualized torture sessions and great, because fantastic. They're human. They're capable of being loving. They're capable of being kind. But the baseline consensus across the family systems of, I'm talking about North American, Native Americans, is no, humanity is evil. And our rules, our traditions, our therapies, medicine, that whatever the medicine is, whether it's actually drugs or it's chanting or it's dehydration and fasting, or what do they call it where you're in a hot house? Not a sauna.
Sweat lodge?
Sweat lodge.
Yeah.
Sweat lodging. It's to fight evil. Because if we don't do this, we're going down.
Oh, that's interesting.
We're spinning down the pan. I like that. I'll hang with that. I'll hang with those people. So you believe we're evil and we must fight it. I want that.
Yeah.
If people believe they're baseline good, I'm like, I can't be around that.
Yes.
I can't be around that.
Yes. I just want to correct Richard for the YouTube overlords. What Richard wasn't saying, and he should have said, is that all Native American people are all good and all white people are all evil. I just need to make sure that all potential sponsors in the future understand that that is what I really believe, and Richard is wrong. I'm going to get in so much trouble. Okay, we have another section to look at. This is a little longer. Let's see.
Well, the parasites found the wealth everywhere.
Yeah.
And they've invaded like mad.
That's a great example of it.
Hey,
Parasites in academia are a great example of what you're talking
media?
about. Unearned.
Legacy media?
Yes.
Science has been invaded that way.
Yes.
The political, this is a major
Yes.
problem.
Right.
You know, and so how do you protect yourself against the parasitical exploiters?
Well, you could recognize parasitical behavior, right? When everything gets chalked off to racism and white supremacy, when they start using these pejoratives, they start throwing those around for everything. You know, that's one of the ways you recognize. You're like, oh,
that's right.
You're a parasite. You're not really doing science. You're not really doing.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. Like, just because you use those words and because you generalize, that doesn't mean you're a parasite. I do think people get caught up and swept up, especially when you're like leading with your emotions and you've been told, oh, these people that are saying this thing is bad, therefore they must be racists. You know, I don't think it means you have a pathology necessarily.
No, and obviously, as I drifted into middle age, I became more belligerent and right wing, as every person with a brain does.
As a person becomes more responsible, they go, "Shit, I have to pay the bills."
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I was a radical leftist when I was a kid, but I'd never built a business. I didn't have any money in the bank, so I was like, "Yeah, give everyone money. Give me money."
Yeah,
that means I'll not have to
until
work.
you get asked, "Where does the money come from?" You go, "I don't
know." So I had this very, very dim view for a long time of what we would pejoratively call woke people. And I don't disagree with what these two very famous, very powerful multi-millionaires, Joe Rogan lives in a $14.4 million mansion. I don't disagree with what they're saying necessarily. However, in the last year, when I go dance bachata, I'm hanging around with university students, University of Liverpool students of every stripe from every nation. And they have gender neutral bathrooms. We don't have men and women in bachata anymore. We have leaders and followers. These are kids with a good intention. I think they're wrong, but they're not. They're really not out to tear society down.
No.
Prague, I told you. My friends in Prague are like performers and singers. They're from like age, the oldest is 38, the youngest would be 22 in a group of about 20. They're theater kids. They're silly, they're goofy, and they are super woke. and everybody is trans and everybody is gay and everybody is queer. And if I have an opinion, they'll be like, oh, yeah, the middle-aged white man wants to speak and tell us how it, blah, 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 blah. It's all good-natured, but they're not trying to destroy society.
Yeah.
So I would say the thick end of the wedge of what we probably should stop calling woke, but let's just call it woke, actually is people who are young and they're inexperienced and they're a little bit brainwashed. And you probably should believe shit like that when you're 20 years old for a while. I did. I had purple hair. I was going on marches.
Yeah, purple hair?
Yeah, purple hair,
Nice.
pierced face.
Nice.
I studied, I didn't have to. I chose to study feminism and I aced my dissertation on feminism. I was into it, man. I was into all that. And I really believed that white Western colonization had made the world a worse place until I traveled and went and lived in these countries that we'd apparently colonized and exploited and done nothing but harm to. And I saw, no, brown people are capable of fucking each other up.
Oh, yeah.
Corruption, and it's not a white problem. And then I came up with this idea that I've talked about on other podcasts, which is kind of white supremacy via the back door. What we're saying is we're uniquely equal. No, we're not. We own evil. No, we don't. We're the ones destroying the planet. No, we're not. We're not that important. It's this, self-flagellation. Oh, sorry for being white. I'm sorry for being white. I'm so powerful. No, you're not.
No.
You're not more powerful than Indians, than Africans in that metric of the capacity to do evil. That's a human trait.
And also, I think the metric is all off, because I think this whole thing of good and evil, the metric is based on the amount of melanin or whatever you have in your skin, like the color. I just think it's fucked up, because then, as we're going to get to now, you don't see the evil coming because the evil doesn't wear a particular color.
It should look like me.
It will look like whatever.
A middle-aged white man.
But it will look like whatever, and then you just buy it based on the wrong metric.
Yeah.
The metric you should be looking at is like fucking empathy and the psychopathy.
No, to give them a harder time. So I just softened it and said the majority are kids, but there are adults there.
Oh, yeah.
And they're fucking idiots.
Yeah, they are.
And they're massively irresponsible, and they are literally destroying the fabric of reality.
Yep.
So the kids get a pass.
They do.
Like anybody who doesn't believe me, like try and join a university group for something. If you don't want to do salsa and bachata, get around woke kids. They're not nasty. They're not like aggressive. They're like a little bit lulu la la. But so
Well,
what?
they're dreamers as well.
Yeah, they're 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to be a utopian at 20, then utopianism may as well just die tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's rooted in good intention. The flip side of that coin is, yes, there are adults who are giving people a very, very distorted view of reality with very, very heavy consequences. And it is racist. Whether it's right-wing oppressive racism or left-wing, generally styled, patronizing racism, the racism of lowered expectations, racism's racism. And all of this like color, you're white, I'm this, I'm that. All I want to say to these people is, you are segregationists.
Yeah.
Please own it.
Yeah.
Please don't be hypocrites about it. No, it's about love and equality. Well, then why are we doing the color thing again?
Yeah.
Why are we back here doing color? Like, get your color chart out and let's measure. How
virtuous are you?
Let's DNA check you. Let's see how much reparations you're owed.
Sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
Let's DNA check you.
I think we've done this before.
We've done this before. But they keep swearing it's going to be different this time. Let's keep on going.
One of the hallmarks of identification from the clinical literature for the cluster B types, and so they have a parasitical element, histrionic, narcissistic, psychopathic, criminal, right? That's cluster B. They use false claims of victimization to manipulate.
Yes.
And so this is a particularly pernicious pathway because they parasitize empathy. Right. And the left is unbelievably susceptible to that because the left is full of empathic people.
Sorry,
and so those who parasitize empathy have a field day on the left.
Just to reiterate, I don't think Jordan Peterson values what he says enough when it's in the field of psychology.
Yeah.
Parasitizing empathy is a beautiful expression, and I believe it's his.
Is it?
I've never heard anybody else say it before. And
well, I know that God's side talks about suicidal empathy, but not parasitizing.
Yeah, there's going to be more of a move in this sort of alternative space in the next few years for people to talk about weaponized empathy, parasitized empathy, toxic empathy has already been raised.
Yeah.
But the
Parasitized.
parasitized
It's not
empathy.
easy.
Parasitized empathy is beautiful because it's stealing lazily the empathy that should be for others.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care that the people who really deserve it aren't going to get that slice of pie because I took it. Fuck them. I got mine. He should drill down in stuff that he thinks is too simple and too easy. He should drill down into.
And the parasite installs itself into the empathy and then has the empathic human being take actions that go against their self-interests and against their actual principles. That's what's so amazing about it.
Well, this is why when you get when I get animated about it, I say you're literally destroying the fabric of reality because you're subsuming people into a false world and stealing. And in this false world, I am a victim. And in this false world, you are my savior. You owe me. You owe me compensation on the basis of what? Here's my story. What do you say about that? And you go, well, I would like to question your story. Because you're racist, because you're a fascist, because you're a Nazi. That's why. No, the story didn't make sense. Like, can we please talk about this? And in our culture today, can we talk about it? No. You want to talk about it? Go to the UK. Try talking about it. They will go, this is not hyperbole. This is real. You talk about it or you write about it on Facebook or Twitter, the police come to your house and put you in prison, not for a month, for over a year.
FYI, if you don't believe it, look it up.
Look it up. It's literally true.
And by the way, non-UK residents as well. Now they're going to be looking at foreigners coming in, looking at their social media as well to see what they've said against the UK government.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not. It's the very challenging of the narrative itself has become illegalized, and so we're now subsumed in. Sorry to be the carpenter for whom everything is a nail and everything is a hammer. It's a narcissistic shared fantasy. We're now subsumed in a narcissistic reality at broad scale.
Right, which is being promoted by the media, social media, the echo chambers. It's all being reinforced.
And they'll tell you this is for love and equality, for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is not. It is for oppression and tyranny. And I believe that non-ironically.
Yeah.
I 1000% believe that.
It's a bit like a murderer who's saying, I'm doing this for your own good to free you. It's that dark.
Yeah, it's like I suppose that's an interesting concept for a story, isn't it? Like a Gnostic serial killer who's like, no, you're trapped in this horrifying material world.
Let me free you.
Let me free you. I'm Jesus. And I just want to release you.
See, that's dark. That is dark. Yeah, because on your way to death, you realize like, oh, divinity is fucked. All right, almost here. Almost done with this guy.
Those who parasitize empathy have a field day on the left.
Right. Because the left is generally thought to be more educated, more compassionate, kinder, looking out for marginalized people. That's part of the ethics of it all.
The ethic is pretty straightforward. Anything that cries is a baby. It's like, no, some things that cry are monsters.
Ooh.
Right. Well, let's take the case of Nicola Sturgeon. The Scottish Prime Minister, the previous Scottish Prime Minister. Any man who wants to can be a woman. It's like, okay, any man. You mean any man, do you? Yeah. Have you encountered the nightmare men? Oh, they don't exist. They're all victims. Yeah. You just bloody well wait till you encounter one. So you'll change your story very rapidly.
So this is what Jordan's alluding to here, or he's not alluding to it. What he's pointing to here is you have somebody like Nicola Sturgeon. She was the former Queen of Scotland, and she put a man in a woman's prison, a man with a penis in a woman's prison because he identified as a woman, and then he the female prisoners because he's a psychopathic criminal, and I don't know if you know this, Mark. Some psychopathic criminals lie to get what they want.
Some of them.
Yeah. They're capable of lying.
Yeah.
This is when I talk about naivety and my frustration, that's the type of naivety I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's no prison officer who believed that was a good idea. There's no caseworker who believes that's a good idea. I don't think there'll be many cops who believe that's a good idea. But a politician and a judiciary and people who are you're going to interview Tetrad. I think he uses the term ideologically captured
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot. If they're ideologically captured, they can make themselves believe patently fucking absurd things.
Mm-hmm.
Should a man with a penis be locked up in a room?
Who's a criminal?
Who's a fucking criminal? Be locked up in a room with women? No. Who, like, what are we talking? How's that a debate?
Yeah.
How's that a conversation? Because, as we said, with the scientific method is good, but it's also dangerous. We get here empirically.
Yeah.
So if a man can identify as a woman, is he really a woman? Yes. Wow. So through magic, through some magical political alchemy.
You're being very transphobic, by the way.
I'm sorry.
Just want to point out to the YouTube gods.
I'm being very, very transphobic. I think when it comes to this type of thing, I think there should be a space where I would say, like, for a lot of us, we're neither really left wing nor are we right wing.
Yeah.
There's not transphobia. But maybe. See, I don't believe men and women are equal in all things.
No.
I believe most men, it's not just what I believe. I know most men are like 20% heavier and 20% stronger than most women. The genitals of men are constructed in such a way that sexual assault is also easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite hard for a woman. It's not impossible. It's quite hard for a woman to do the things a man can do to her. And I'm just like, well, I don't know. If we were on a farm and these were animals, and you would just separate them. But in order to separate them, you would have to say this one is different to that one.
Yeah, you can't do that. So this is the thing. This is the thing I keep thinking about, because when I look at the way empathy is parasitized, that's what happened to me in a cult. That's what happens to a lot of people in the cult, which is like, we're doing this for this good reason, for this good thing, for this good mission. And there are certain uncomfortable things that are going on, but that's all part of growth. And so basically they get you by your goodness because you're still holding on to the mission. And I think what happens to a lot of people is they want to be empathic, and they want to say, well, if somebody has some kind of either, gender dysphoria, or they just really feel like they're born in the wrong body, we should help them. And I totally understand that. But then we end up at a man, a bunch of women in a prison, and like the thing that's so interesting to me is nobody looks at it. Like, I think women are being utterly screwed right now. Like, they're not safe anymore. Like, I thought we were getting ahead. Now suddenly I have a bunch of half of my friends are gay. I have a bunch of gay friends saying to me, like, this shit's gone insane. Like, we don't agree.
Yeah.
And then if you say things like that, say, oh, you're phobic. I'm not fucking phobic. I'm just trying to understand. Like, if anything, I'm trying to protect women.
So in the field of narcissistic abuse and psychopathy and narcissistic and psychopathic abuse recovery, I would always say to victims, whatever happened, you can assume by reverse engineering that was their intent. If you now feel riddled with guilt and shame for leaving the cult, then it was the intention of the cult leader for you to feel guilt and shame. So I'm like, so if you're making it easier to sexually assault women and children because you're taking the guardrails away, and you're saying there's no safe space for women now, women can box with biological men, which to me, again, is absolute lunacy. Teach very young children. I don't know if you know about sex ed with kids, but some of the stuff they teach them is.
Oh, really? Oh, that they're teaching them now?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard it's pretty bad.
They'll go, oh, we're teaching them that this is a possibility, so they don't do it. And I'm like, do you understand?
They're gonna do it.
Do you understand psychology? And do you understand children? You just gave them an option. There's no aversion in this.
Yeah.
And also, why is the state teaching kids this? Well, that's the parents' job. For me personally, I'm like, that's insane. The point is, it's an anti-boundary ideology, and it makes the more vulnerable in society easier to predate upon. So is it possible that the point of the entire exercise
is that?
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting, you were just saying, like, boundarylessness. Everybody in the post-cult space and the post-abuse space talks about boundaries. And then I'm going, shouldn't we have boundaries in women's spaces too then?
Yeah.
Or is that bad? And then they suddenly go like, well, no, and they get fuzzy. And again, because I feel like they're captured by like their desire to be good and the desire for goodness, and they can't answer the question. And then they just get angry.
Yes, because there isn't really a logical Well, I've never, not once, seen a logical explanation for why biologically born men should be. If you have the equipment, and you'll have to delete that word.
I will. I will. Take it out.
If you have the equipment, the genitals, the physiological equipment, and you have the strength, you should not be in an area where women are undressed and you're undressed.
Yeah.
And also the sky is blue and water is wet.
Yes.
Are we crazy? Like that's if we can't. This is the problem. This is why society is becoming so polarized, because we can't agree on basics. So right wingers and left wingers in 1940s America couldn't argue about this because they had way too much in common. It'd just be like, you know. I'm not saying that's a great time and I would love to live there. I wouldn't. I'm 47 years old. I've never been married. I don't have kids. They would view, both sides would view me with great suspicion. Because I'm a weirdo. I live this bohemian life. I travel here, there, and it's not for me. I'm not nostalgic for some time that probably didn't really exist anyway. I'm just saying that the polarization has grown so much that we have ludicrous conversations where you can say to somebody, "What is a woman?" And they're like, "Well, it's what you want to be." Okay, well then I'm black. I'm a black woman. I'm a black female communist lesbian. I'm what? I'm a black female communist lesbian. I'm what? Oh, no.
Oh, I've seen these discussions. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Anyone can be anything. It's all a game of dress up and nothing means anything. If nothing is attached to my flesh, why are you talking about my flesh?
Yeah.
If nothing is attached to my flesh, why are you cutting your flesh? If your identity is not your flesh, don't cut it. Leave it. You just happen to be a man with breasts and a uterus. I'm more for that. The reason so you mentioned transphobia, you were joking, but some people will say it.
Yeah.
My phobia is for mentally ill and vulnerable people to get experimental surgery that I consider to be absolutely barbaric and dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's not my opinion.
Yeah.
That is medical fact.
Yes.
If you could just change, if we could give you a body and you would be fine, I would never have anything to say on the subject. I'd be like, go ahead.
Yeah.
And if you changed your mind after 2 weeks, you didn't enjoy being a woman, or you go, oh, this wasn't it. I think I was just depressed, or I think maybe I'm autistic, or maybe I need, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm a psychologist. Of course I have compassion for you. You suffer.
Yeah.
We're all suffering. We're all trapped in this shitty world. You think being a woman's going to help, and then you find out after all that painful surgery and all that expense and all that hassle, didn't do it.
Yeah.
How high is the suicide rate amongst these people? You can look it up over a 10-year period. It's enormously high. Doesn't work. They don't feel good. And they go, you know what it is? You're trapped in the wrong body.
Yeah.
So they go, okay, well, let's get that process started. On average, it takes 10 years to complete.
Really?
10 years.
And a lot of money.
Oh, it's millions.
Right.
One trans client to the medical community is worth easily over $1 million.
Really?
Easily.
And it's sanctioned by the medical community and sanctioned by the state. That's so interesting.
Yeah. And what is the rate? Again, people can call me a transphobe if they want, but let's start testing people for autism. Let's start testing people for borderline personality disorder. And if we can say, look, this person is vulnerable and they do have body dysmorphia. Of course, I have body dysmorphia. I take steroids and lift weights. Everybody has body fucking dysmorphia. Yeah. I don't feel good here. None of us really feel great here for whatever reason. I guess that's another podcast. Like, what's the existential crisis that humans have?
Being in the meat suit that's so uncomfortable.
Being in the meat suit and stuck on this planet, this Gnostic hellhole. Blech. You don't want to be here.
Gnostic hellhole.
I agree with you. It sucks here. It stinks. That might not help. You might have been sold a utopian dream. You just need to change your endocrinal system in a way that we can't reverse. We just need to give you surgery that is experimental, barbaric, painful, and will have you on antibiotics. Do you know this for the rest of your life?
Yes, I heard that. I heard that.
You got because you can't drill. I can't drill and gouge a hole into your perineum as a man and say that's a functioning vagina. It isn't.
Yeah.
If we had the tech, I would say, I really wouldn't have an opinion on it.
Richard, he's not in reality. He's not in reality about these things. He really isn't.
It's all that sci-fi I'm reading.
It's all that sci-fi.
If you could become a woman, I not only would say become a woman, I would encourage people to.
And
do
I
it.
do think that's going to happen, by the way. I do think like within 10, 20 years, you're going to be able to change that meat suit.
Do you think?
You know,
Within 20?
20 years, I think you'll be able to change it. Yeah.
I
You can try it out. Like, you know, I want to spend a week as this. I want to be an alien for a while. You know, I think it'll happen.
I think if it can and it's safe and it's totally reversible, I'm all for it because I think it would generate massive empathy.
Yeah.
Let women try and live as a man for a month. Let men
Yeah.
try and live as a woman for a month with all of the hormones, all of the feelings, all of the desires.
If I see what my wife goes through, I go like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. Because you know the whole thing, we wake up and feel the same every day, and they wake up feel different every single day.
Yes.
That sounds hard.
Yes.
And just to pick up on this, I want to finish this part here, just to my audience to consider. You know, like the things that Richard's talking about protecting women and women's spaces so that they don't get diddled in prison violently. You know, the question then is, you know, his care for women, is that bad or is that good?
Well, some people call that misogyny. So I would just say that's out of love for people and love for women. And misogyny means an unhinged loathing of women for being women, and I am not that.
Yeah,
I love people, kind of, as long as they're away from me and I don't have to listen to them fucking talk. As a vague...
He's lying and not lying.
No, yes, of course. No, I love people. As a vague sort of Vedantic Buddhist concept of life, I know that people suffer.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to suffer.
Yeah.
So they're vulnerable. You are just in that context, you're vulnerable. So I'm not a misogynist. If you wanted to call me like a chauvinist, I would probably be like, okay, I think men and women are different. And I think that women are vulnerable to the predations of men, and I think that good men should protect women from bad men. Can I just say something about what he said? Jordan Peterson said, men enforce the protection of women. Yes. They don't like men who predate on women.
Yeah.
Prisons are where we send the psychopaths of society. If you go to prison, if I go to prison and I'm celled up with somebody who hurt a woman, it is expected I will beat the living shit out of that person. That's men enforcing that. They don't have to. It might not have been particularly egregious. It could have been just that whatever he did, I can be expected to hurt him. And men will enforce that I do that for what reason? He hurt a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you also, hang on. This is patriarchy. You all hate women. Well, they all have wives. They all have daughters. They all have mothers. Yeah. Some of them in that prison population, a percentage, are real misogynists and they loathe women.
Yes.
Usually they're put on a separate wing.
Yes.
Gen Pop prisoners, they'll if they find out you hurt a woman, they will fuck you up. It depends on what country,
and God
what
forbid
state.
They find out you hurt a child.
Then we're into a whole other realm.
Yeah.
Then the violence can become really unhinged.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch the interviews in the podcast, but you know, in some countries and some states in America, and it can be like, you're in a cell. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to that person, or we're going to do it to you. That's men enforcing with men. I think we need to get past the gender hysteria.
Yeah.
We should stop dividing between men and women because it's completely fucking infantile. A slightly more nuanced view would be divide between the cluster B narcissistic psychopaths that Jordan is speaking about and everyone else.
Yes.
That's the proper dividing line in humanity, not race, not gender.
100%.
It's the dark ones, it's the evil ones, it's the twisted ones, it's the soulless ones versus the rest of us. And 5%, people might go, oh, 5% doesn't sound like much.
It's a lot.
If we lived in a tribe of 100 people and 5 people were hell-bent on chaos and depravity, we would have a problem until we killed them.
Yeah. 5 people that have no qualms about doing whatever. Well, we're worried about, like, is this the right thing to do? They don't care.
You're trying to farm. You're trying to build shelters. And then you have to keep looking over at where your kids are and where your wife is because, you know, this freak might be predating upon them. And in times gone by, it would have been easier. There would have been, and Jordan mentions that, I think elsewhere in the interview, I don't know if it's in this clip, when we lived in tribes where there was no anonymity, if it was only up to 150 people, you could identify them and you would deal with them. And that would be men. And it would mainly be men. And that would be men. They would just take them out for a little walk. And guess what? They wouldn't come back that day.
Not good or bad, just
It's
what
just
is.
functional.
Just what
it's
is.
a system.
Okay, let's finish this real quick.
And
Yeah.
for the naive and sheltered empaths of the radical left, they're either psychopaths, so they're wolves in sheep clothing, or they're people that are so naive that the what would you say?
Yes, psychopaths and naivete, but also they're captured by their own goodness. That's another category that he doesn't really talk about.
Captured by their own delusion of goodness.
Delusion of goodness, yes, absolutely.
Red Riding Hood's grandmother can definitely have his way with them.
Yes, that's
Right.
literally something that I use as an example in my Netflix special. I said that I think there are people that feel like they're trapped in a woman's body, and then there's also people that are out of their fucking mind. They're crazy, and that
Oh, they're
all
not
throughout
just
history.
crazy.
But what I pointed out all throughout history, when you wanted to make like a killer in a movie scarier, you put him in a dress, like Norman Bates in Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, and I used the Big Bad Wolf. I'm like, it's literally a wolf dressed up like a woman. Like, that's literally what it is. And they've somehow or another completely abandoned this one aspect of masculinity that's one of the more terrifying, is the predatory pervert. And they've given the predatory pervert a privileged position.
Right.
And that's
That's Eve's.
one
That's
of
Eve's
the
sin, by the way.
one of the craziest things about it is they've completely abandoned the idea of the pedophile
monster.
and then the monster and the sexual pervert, then the attacker, the assaulter, the person who, when you give a guy, you say, all you have to do is say you're a woman. Now you have access to
You have
whatever
license.
women's spaces,
Yeah.
all the women's spaces. You could victimize them. You
Yeah.
could fight them. You could beat them in sports. You could dominate them in all games. It's bizarre that no one's caught on to that. And that's
For sure.
that's the weirder, that's the more cult-like, and even you could say,
People have caught on to it. The problem is they get labeled horrible names.
I think there's something to be said functionally for all of us. I mean, we both post online. Everybody watching this, you've got to get past the fear of being called horrible names. You've really got to get past it. Let them say it. It doesn't mean anything anyway. It lost its meaning around 2020. So just let them call you horrible names. Both my grandfathers fought in World War II. One was in the parachute regiment. The other one was in the Fleet Air Arm, having dogfights in the sky in a tiny little lawnmower with fucking wings and a machine gun attached. The other one, he was in a slit trench in France, and a German mortar hit him in the head and chopped his arm off. And he went on to make a full recovery and then became the beloved headmaster of a school. He's who I'm named after, Grandpa Dick, Richard. But yeah, he was cool. I thought he had one eye, but he had one eye covered because of the damage to his brain affected his vision. So to keep him from getting dizzy, he would have a patch. So I thought he was cool as fuck when I was a kid. I was like, this dude's a pirate. Has one arm. They went to battle for the freedom to do all this, risk life and limb so that we can do all of this masturbatory, hand-wringing nonsense. If I can't deal with somebody online calling me a meanie word, what is it for? And how am I failing them? Call me nasty words. It's okay. I'll be brave as they were.
And I would say for my audience, if you are feeling meanie words inside of you, it's good to notice. But please stay curious.